you're both speaking on stages and all sorts of stuff. And I think one of the big things that was interesting is just that I feel like I feel like we might approach a digital marketing space in a few different ways. I'm a big believer of dynamic ads, broad targeting, stabilization of CPA, simplicity. And from what I understand, you're a bit more of a believer in copywriting and also getting way down into some more granular control. I remember seeing pieces about like the Formula One car versus other things and all that fun content. I'm curious, like, what is sort of your take on your approach to how getting things done?
Yeah, I mean, I think, my approach is much more from a direct response marketing focus. And so, the way we run accounts is very much built on getting insights and signal on the direct response side, using the copy, basically, like, it's kind of similar. Well, it's not drastically different than what I've seen you talk about in some interviews as far as your testing phases and how you try to figure out what copy or ads are working. It's a very systematic approach. But from us, we've used Facebook ads as very much a advertising direct response field. Because a lot of the like you said, the DCOs and now ACB is a media buying machine, machine learning, and the practices that they teach people to use is to what helps a machine learning growth happen. But for me, I very much come at it for more of a direct response marketing side, which causes you to break the best practices that they do, because their best practices are designed for machine learning and not necessarily for advertising marketing intelligence.
And where do you find like those differences being? I mean, by the way, I love the Porsche ad in the background. My favorite, the Ogilvy styles are so good. My favorite is the VW 0 to 60 yes ad. That might be my favorite print ad of all time. So we got a lot of love for that. I'm curious, where do you find the differences in leaning into leveraging the machine versus direct response? Because it feels like that's a very specific lever in how that you're looking at one thing versus the other.
Well, I'd say for sure that Facebook definitely does not like my approach more. Facebook does not like direct response or care about it. I guess that would be a better way to say. They're apathetic to it. It is designed for the most part for them is how can we create a safe experience for users that deliver relevant ads, and that is their real only concern, because the more users feel safe, the more time they'll spend, therefore the more ads they can show, and shareholders are happy. So to say, they do not care about you understanding whether your market reacts better to a direct or an indirect ad, or to a state 1 of awareness versus a state 3. They do not care about any of it because they're not designing that product for that purpose. So I would say that's probably the biggest difference, if there was one, between our approaches.
Yeah. So in that way, then you are strategically or executionally trying to force delivery of impressions or take some control away from the machine to control the customer journey or workflow through some sort of funnel versus the attention first business model that Facebook would have.
I would say more leaning on, I want the advertiser to get that insight on their market more. I want the advertisers to get those signals to better understand what their market is feeling and what they react to, rather than necessarily media buying efficiency per se. Now, realistically, like the phase 3 of our method actually goes into the best practice, goes into using the ACB, going into using DCO and all those optimizations. But in my opinion, unless you have controls being placed into the best practice, you're not gaining the insight, because if it wins, you have no idea why it won. And if it loses, you have no idea why it lost. And so our process is first going through and establishing those controls so that when you get to the phase 3, you can spend money confidently, knowing that all of it is going into things that already works and is proven with the market.
So for you, it's about exhibiting as much control as you can over the discovery of winning elements and the creation of control assets to then leverage in a fashion so that by the time you do get to using CBO and dynamic ads and broad targeting, you know that you put your best foot forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in almost even, I would say, less of control, because in advertising, it's like, how many advertisers actually have control? You know, I mean, it's like, that's not true. But what I would actually rather more say is and this is the purpose behind that decentralized concept, which is the thing that you more called out. The concept of the decentralized is that there's no single point of failure, right? So you're decentralizing your risk by allowing not all of your eggs to be in one basket, and you're decentralizing it so that you're getting better signal, so that, I guess, in a sense, you have a feeling of more control.
Got it. So the decentralization, and this is something that like I haven't been able to garner out of going through your content, and I feel like you and I have both gone through each other's stuff to some extent, which is great, because I think there's a lot of folks with good ideas, and both of you and I both share a lot, which I think is great. I think, it's awesome to see multiple people getting to success one way or the other. Being able to see what that looks like is phenomenal. I think that decentralization, for me, what really rang an alarm bell is the idea that it feels as though I'll put it this way. My belief is that we're in business with our partner, in this case, Facebook. When we are trying to manipulate that or not lean into it as heavily as we can, often that insight comes at the expense of the insight and control, or ability to have tactile control comes at the expense of the upside of performance. And I feel like what you're getting at is either you haven't seen that happen, or with that insight and that ability to have a more leveraged approach, you're able to get a better net outcome for a longer period of time. That's kind of what it feels like. I mean, I don't have the whole decentralized thing down, because I'm sure, there's learnings and all sorts of other stuff. We both run businesses where we teach, where like that, isn't necessarily as simple as it can be put in a couple of paragraphs.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's the decentralized purpose is for the long term, like you just said. If you get an ad campaign that starts taking off, we both know that campaign's not lasting forever. And unless you have the insights for why it is performing well or why it's doing well, well, then you're not going to be able to maintain that result for long. And so that's really the purpose, is for the advertiser. Now, I don't see Facebook as my partner. If we consider them as a partner, they are one of the worst partners ever for an advertiser. They offer a product that they'll happily take my money for, and they will happily give me quote unquote reps to help me spend more money on their platform. But they are not a good partner. My goal is to help protect the advertiser and help protect the business owner who is running the paid media on how to navigate this platform called Facebook. But yeah, I mean, dude, if we think Facebook's a partner, man, they are one of the worst partners of all time.
I hear you. Yeah, the level of support. I mean, I remember when I got into Facebook, there was like one rep for every account spending 7 figures west of the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
Right. And like,
yep.
That's before there was a pixel. It was still a PPC platform. I remember when like affinity audiences got brought over as interest groups and all that fun stuff. But there's two things you said there. One, campaigns lasting forever. I might push back on that. Like, I've got brands like my women's clothing business, or a meal replacement shake company I was a part of, or CBD business, or some SaaS companies where our primary campaign would last well over a year or longer. Like, for me, I guess I don't see it as campaigns living and dying and then having to be replaced, so much as sometimes the best investment asset that you have depreciates in value in comparison to other potential investments. Like some ads become less effective than the amalgamation of other options. But I don't know, for me, maybe it's just an architectural thing or just a nomenclature thing, but when I build a campaign, that thing basically never gets turned off. Like, and that might be just a structural decision. I don't know if that's just maybe the way that you're doing stuff, but for me, I try to design it in a way that it'll never turn off, because I want to make sure that every penny I'm spending today informs the media that'll be spent in 6 months.
Yeah,
when
of
I'm
course.
turning ads on or off, or ad sets on or off, or campaigns on or off, I think of it as firing an employee that I invested time and money into training. And if I can avoid that happening, if I have less churn, I'll have greater potential or stability. I don't know. That's sort of the way that I look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say the same thing. No one should have the intention of turning something off at a given point. If it's working, let it go. But, even the fact that you said, a year, I'm just knowing that you've been around since Facebook's been a PPC platform. That's 6 years plus, 7 years plus. A year is relatively not forever and not even close to it. It is a longer period of time, but absolutely, you probably have no campaigns that have been active for the last 3 years running. So
I would say probably more that any accounts I was working on 3 years ago, that business has either gone through an exit or I've moved on. So I honestly don't think I've touched things for that long of a period. Yeah. So you might be right.
Well, I mean, let's even pretend that that is true. But that is also coming from you who, appears to be an expert in this space, but the vast majority of people running advertising have no idea what they're doing. And so sure. I think it can be a dangerous thought to say that you don't need to have a methodical approach to gain insights that you didn't previously have, because we're assuming that people will hit the target every single time, which almost never happens, even for the best advertisers in the world. And so that's kind of more of what mine is hedging for, which is for someone who is trying to learn and gain the insight, and they don't understand their market perfectly, they don't understand product market fit or positioning or messaging or whatever. Those people need a systematic and methodical way to give them those data signals before they should just toss everything in the basket and go, Facebook, do your work. Because unless you know what you're giving Facebook is effective ads for it to run with, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I will definitely agree with that. Like, I think we're both very much in the agreement of system and process, a framework for repeatable and scalable insight and investment. I mean, that is essential, I think, to anything. I shudder to think, of how many people out there are doing audience testing with a bunch of different ads, and they'll run it for like a week and then turn off the stuff that doesn't work and then continue to try to just throw more money at things. And they find one ad that works, they throw all their money behind it. That ad stops working because the algebra of estimated action rate and advertiser score and budget breaks on them. And then for them, they say, well, Facebook doesn't work anymore. It's getting more and more expensive. It's getting more and more difficult. I think we're definitely in agreement. And then the other side of it is that business partner, while I will definitely agree, the level of support that we get from Facebook is, I will say, disappointing, to be PC about it, as it were, to be as politely as possible. I guess that's a difference of opinion, where I feel like we are in a symbiotic relationship of one time or another, where they're a vendor and we're making an investment, and the more closely we align our goals and respect each other's business models, the better either of us can do. So for me, that's where some of the decentralization comes as a bit of a concern, in that I think you're coming from the place of, it sounds to me at least like Facebook's not really concerned with my success or failure, which I agree with. They'll if you fail, there's 1,000 other yous out there trying to spend money. then in that case, I guess my question is, or what my position is, does it not benefit us to try to be as algorithmically aligned with that platform if we are deciding to leverage Facebook to be a business amplification device to something that is working in parallel with it, using it for incrementality to that? If we're not aligned with it, and the system effectively penalizes a lack of alignment with rising costs, if we're not aligned, we're ultimately going to be priced out of the ability to do business together. I mean, I don't know. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, except they're never going to say that, right? The rep will never look at you and go, unless you conform to our structures that we give, you know, Power 5, whatever it be, we will shut down your ad account. They're never going to say that.
No, but they will
say that you should trust us and let us do a test period together. I know this because I've done it, you know, probably nearly a dozen times by now, where even they're issuing credits and going, hey, we'll pay for half of this thing. Let's do this for a couple of weeks. But at some point, a business cannot sustain spending the amount of money that they want you to spend and not seeing the results. And then they hold their hands up. And especially right now, where, in my opinion, they are not being a great fiduciary partner to their advertisers because they can't even fix their own system when they have the resources to fix it. It is just not a priority for them. And
I will say,
you know, our combined structures, our DCOs and, you know, ACBs are all great to give efficiency into machine learning. Machine learning for what? You are not even getting the signals back to make those optimizations. And so in a world where you're already flying blind, they are not optimizing and doing their part. Why should you continue to go, I will treat the machine the way they want it to do it, when clearly it's already broken and they're not doing anything about it?
I hear you. And yeah, I'll definitely agree that all the engineering teams that I know have either been moved to metaverse or like shopping, like stuff like it is. That is a pain. I mean, like the interest group department stopped existing in like 2018. Like they just haven't been supporting it for many years. And amongst many other projects. That I was super bullish on Canvas ads and dead wrong after like wasting $7 million of Activision's dollars, but whatever, we learn, we live and learn. Apparently you might have had the same luck by that chuckle. But yeah, so I guess then I think the real difference of our approach is saying, if I don't think that they're motivated to support me or work with me, and I do think, by the way, that they do tell us whether we're aligned or not. I look at CPM, for instance, as a ramification of that. Like I see advertisers spending 25, like 35, 40, $50 plus on CPMs. And for me, that says, well, I'm a liability to Facebook's bottom line. And as a ramification of my lack of respect for their business model, they're choosing to charge me an exorbitant fee to just play the game. And when I do get ads that users like to respond to, that have a high estimated action rate, not only am I getting cheaper inventory, but I'm also getting higher quality visibility, because impressions, you know, if you're 20 minutes into a doom scroll, that's an impression or that ad versus like the second thing somebody sees when they open up Instagram, right? And what I've noticed is when I'm prioritizing Facebook's objective of the retention of attention for monetization, right? Basically time on site to sell inventory, I've also profit. When I'm aligning my business objectives with utilizing them or that platform for my advertising, I'm getting a higher volume of higher quality inventory for the same or lower investment than many competitors are. I don't know if you see it that same way. Because I'm also trying to take a look at what can I ultimately control. I can't control their level of caring about me, but I can control my level of investment of aligning myself with what they need.
Yeah. I probably can't speak much to, the account structures causing changes in CPMs, namely because their, auctions are not, from everything I've been told, is not designed around that. It's designed exactly what you said, it's like ad quality, it's expected action rate, and it's one more. What is the
Oh, it's bid. So the bid equals the budget,
bid,
estimated action rate, and advertising
quality, and then estimated action rate. None of that has to do with, do you have a proper account structure? So in my opinion, if they are penalizing people for not creating the campaign in a proper way, that should be illegal. It should be lawsuit worthy,
Yeah, I would say, I'm not saying that they're penalizing you for that. I would say that it's less about a structural, architectural thing. I think there are ramifications of your architecture where you force impressions, lower quality user experiences. Like if you have unproven assets, right, where you haven't gone through and developed them so that they're what people want, or you're using heavy retargeting, or really any, or like interest groups or lookalikes, knowing that every ad effectively creates its own audience and that Facebook is trying to give their users the highest quality experience. When you fight that, you are then investing in forcing Facebook to give a lower quality experience to their users. And as a result, you're going to pay a higher unit rate to advertise. I guess that's probably way too many syllables definition of what that looks like.
The only problem with that, though, is that it presupposes that you can always deliver an ad that is proven and delivers a high quality experience, but that's impossible. There's only one way to do that, and that's to test. That's the only way to get there. And so the only way to do that is to force impressions. I don't think any advertiser wakes up and goes, let me deliver a low quality ad. I think the goal is always, how do I get a better ad? But the only way to do that is to test it. And at that point, sometimes it will require you to deliver low quality ads. But in that case, you should control and silo that testing so it's not affecting your scaling campaigns. Because if you inject that, you could hurt that campaign. And so that's the point of the decentralization, is to silo your audience testing, silo your creative testing, so that when you get to scaling, you are working on all controls and that campaign is unpolluted because you can have confidence in every aspect of it.
So this decentralization is one campaign that effectively validates elements.
Yeah,
and then another campaign where you are doing testing of assets and audiences.
So ours is, we never want to test two different variants at one time. So anytime I'm testing creative, I don't want to also be testing audience. And anytime I'm testing audience, I don't want to be testing creative. So phase one is testing audiences using proven creatives, post IDs if you have them. Moving into phase two is, once you've found audiences that show promise, you move into that where it's creative testing using those proven audiences, using variants against your control ad. So you're trying to beat the control. And then once you have creatives that are starting to either match or beat your control, you move into phase three with proven audiences, proven creatives, but you keep the others two running, because that scaling campaign is gonna need new creative, which you're testing consistently in phase two. And eventually it might even need new audiences. So that's why you keep phase one running, so you can drip them over.
Yeah, I guess then there's two suppositions there that I'm just interested in. One is that audiences matter. And for me, that I guess, what types of audiences are we talking about? Retargeting interests, lookalikes, or is it a conglomeration of any one of those?
We have main pillars that we have people look into. The first one is always interests, starting specifically with competitors. Then normally our next best is influencers or authorities in that industry or that your market would look to. Then publications is our next one. Then we move into more behaviors and demographics. So that would be, testing either job titles or behaviors that Facebook recognizes. And then the last one is typically broads or larger lookalike audiences. We don't typically audience test 1 or 2% lookalikes, but larger 5, 6, 7, 8, 10%.
Gotcha. So then I guess, is your assumption then that an interest group is, 1, accurate, 2, showing positive intent, sentiment, 3 implying some sort of buying intent, or even at or is stable? Because for me, I don't find that, from my understanding of how interest groups work, I don't think that it would check any of those boxes, but that might be my understanding of it versus somebody else's.
Well, I mean, at this point in Facebook advertising, it would be irrelevant anyway. I use interests as essentially a launch point for Facebook to use, because even Facebook says we will expand beyond this audience when we believe that we can find better conversions or a cheaper cost of conversion. And so I use it as the pure fact of someone willing to buy a MAGA hat is much more likely to like the page Donald Trump than they are to like the page Joe Biden. And so it's simply meaning as this is a basis point of interest that we believe our market most likely likes. But I mean, Facebook is going to go outside of those interests anyway. But in my opinion, it's kind of like pointing them in the right direction.
So I guess if somebody is, talking about MAGA hats or going to sites with them, does that imply then that they're a Trump fan? Because
no,
as an example,
I mean, especially with someone like, Trump, when you think of something polarizing like that, I mean, his audience is definitely not just conservatives. People he was president of the United States. So American citizens liked that page. You know what I mean? That's kind of that's really about the only confidence level that you can kind of have. And even then it's still fluid. But
well,
let's
I would say
a better example, like a Bass Pro or
no, I'm sure.
Like
Well, I think the polarizing is a good thing. Like in the examples here, because it's way easier to be hyperbolic and binary versus like a Bass Pro or like the local sub shop or something. Like we can have it, So my point with that being, and not to get political about it, I think it's a very binary kind of example, which I think is great. If I don't like something and I talk about how much I don't like it, with your understanding, does that mean that I'm interested?
If you don't like something?
So if I talk about, for instance, and again, just using examples here, if you're very, let's go Bass Pro Shop so we don't have to get political here. You're a huge Bass Pro Shop fan, and I think it's the worst thing ever. You talk about all the time how much you like it, and I'll regularly share anything I can about how much I don't like it. But we're both using keywords, Bass Pro Shops, going to the site, mentioning the words, using pictures, all sorts of these contextual pieces. Would you think, is your understanding that the system is when I'm in the Bass Pro Shop interest group, does that imply positive or negative sentiment to Bass Pro Shop? And like, if I were to respond to, for instance, if you were to send an ad about how terrible it is, buy this thing about how much it sucks, could you target people that talk about it knowing that half the people that talk about it hate it?
I don't know. I mean, I think, originally the interest groups or the interest targeting that you could do inside of Facebook was based on, did they like the page, right? And so that was the context of, you don't know, you have zero idea at the range at which this person is interested inside of this thing I'm going after. However, they have taken the time at minimum to like the page to receive more information. Now, on the flip side, it's no different than broad. While you are directing them to a certain segment of people, you're also assuming, because I have told Facebook I want purchases, that they are also deciphering within that segment of people who are likely to purchase what you're trying to sell. And so there is that side to us where I'm giving directional focus, but it is still Facebook's job with their algorithm to search out within that segment of people likely to do what I want to have happen. And which is the same thing with broad. You're assuming that Facebook's going to, shuffle through the muck to find the people likely to do your conversion event.
Yeah, I got you. So I guess, yeah, if I'm anti Bass Pro Shop, I don't know why we're taking the piss out of Bass Pro Shop, but I think it's easier than maybe the first example, but we'll go with it instead of fictitious Jasper's Market. Which, and nobody likes Jasper's Market. I've never been there, but I'm pretty sure it's stupid inside Facebook joke. So if I'm anti-Jasper's Market and I'm selling an anti-Jasper's Market t-shirt and I put in Jasper's Market interest group, then I'm going to be able to focus my ad towards somebody who is anti-Jasper's Market because that's what I'm selling. And I'm less likely to have that ad shown to somebody who is diehard Jasper's Market because of the buying intent of a Jasper's Market product and the metadata on my webpage and the words that people are using and all of that stuff. Like, it's going to be able to determine that the purchase is coming with the sentiment attached, whether it's positive or negative. Does that make sense?
I guess. I mean, it's kind of actually just more along the lines of you have no idea. It would be something I would definitely tell someone to not just hedge on that, which is why in phase one, you're testing many different audiences at one time.
Sure.
But it would not be a bad idea to test it because there is a very decent chance that there could be conversions to be had there. It's the same reason of, let's say I was selling Tesla and I wanted to advertise Tesla on the market. Well, I might obviously go after Tesla as an interest that I go after. But what else would I might go after? Well, where do these people shop? Maybe Whole Foods. So Whole Foods is a place I might target to see if I can find. Lululemon might be a place because, okay, they've got to wear clothes.
Premium brand. Yeah.
Right. So I'm dispersing out across it, playing a game of Battleship and seeing what takes a ping or what tells me that it gives me more data of what next should I test.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. Yeah, because I guess, yeah, I got you. So you're just kind of playing, Battleship or whack-a-mole there on like what works. And then you're digging a little bit of a hole, but that's the opportunity cost of discovery. And then the scale overcomes that detriment.
Yeah. What is absolutely, I mean, in the trainings too, phase one, the biggest disclaimer on is this is not designed to be profitable, which is also why we use micro budgets inside of it. But it is not something designed to be profitable. It's something designed to give you more information about your audience so that now you found the right market to speak to. When you move into phase two, you get to focus on what you're saying. And that's the whole purpose of it.
Got it. So it's who are you going to speak to? And then how do you speak to them? And then can you use that information to go to a less qualified audience to acquire scale?
Yeah, now it's focused, it's like audience creative. Now it's focused on efficiency. How do you become the most efficient in your campaign, which moves into the scaling side where you use all the best practices and machine learning that Facebook has.
Gotcha. Right on. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I'll be honest. I probably would do things very different. Seems like we both might have people that are successful that have learned from us either way. So, black or white, we're still getting there. Vanilla or chocolate, it's still ice cream. I'll put it that way. I don't know why I'm gonna have to use that more often. I just came up with that. I'm gonna have to remember that one. I like ice cream. But yeah, I think that's interesting because that's just very counter to how I would necessarily do stuff. But clearly it's working for a segment of folks. And I guess just with that, like, is there a specific type of individual where this process works better or worse for them versus somebody else? Like, if you found a business objective model or niche that this is the best type of fit for?
Not really niche. It comes down to spend amount. For us, it's really spending at least $10,000 a month in advertising. If you're below it, it's not really the best system because it is a larger system to implement into your ad account. And if you don't have the budget for something like that, you really do need to focus on efficiency because you need to drive those signals from a media buying perspective.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think at some point, if you can't, I think some people can't afford to use Facebook because it does not have the world's best return on your investment. And I think a lot of folks are of the impression that if I start out at 20, 50 bucks a day, I'll be a millionaire. Or if it doesn't work, I'll just start over. And it's like that. I always tell people about runway, like how long can you run? How much time do you have? And how you then scale against that to buy yourself more time and to grow your business. I know we're only supposed to talk for like a half an hour and I'm already coming up on 45 minutes. I want to respect your time because I know you're a busy guy like me, but just, I know you also have some training stuff. I think we've had some folks kind of talk to both of us on that. I'm just, would love to have the opportunity to, also give you have it expound upon like what it is. I think it's what the Hemon X like program is. I don't think that was it, right? Am I just remembering this wrong? I feel like that's it. Yeah. Okay. I don't know why my brain was like, wait, am I right or wrong? I don't know. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So what does all of that entail? Because I've heard some, I've heard a lot of things.
Yeah. So the real main purpose of it is, in a world right now where I believe a lot of media buyers are having difficulty because all they learned ever was media buying. The program is there to help people become more full stack marketers. People who can actually understand market research, consumer psychology, understand copywriting, and obviously outside of, running ads on Facebook, we train on Google and we train on YouTube and TikTok. But really, I mean, HemonX, before it ever became a program for people, it was a program I created for my internal teams, because when I was starting my agency, we were growing really fast, and so my first thought to, as I'm needing to hire people urgently, was pay for talent. Go out, find the top people at Mute 6 or Hawk Media, pay them a lot of money, have them come in, and that's how you can continue to keep up with scale. But I did that and it ended terribly. I found more and more that, the best media buyers that I could find were people who are really, really good at spending money, really, really good at media buying efficiency, but they knew jack all about marketing. They knew jack all about offer creation and all of it. And so, I realized if I wanted a team that could deliver the results I expected from our agency, I had to train it and build it. And so HemonX was that program I had built. And, after about 6 to 10 months, I was kind of just seeing what these media buyers were now doing in my agency. I was like, I think I might have something here. And people would always really ask me if I could consult or train. I'm sure you get it all the time. Like, could you, come in and help my in-house team or whatever?
Sure.
I didn't have the time. And once I saw kind of the results of this thing, it was like, well, I think I just found a need and an easy new business to spin up using what we already know is working.
I love that. Yeah. Cause I've heard, I'm always out there seeing what people are doing. And I've definitely heard that kind of thing where it is a bit of an omni-channel approach using some systems and process heavily built around research. I've had more than a few people come back or talk about also the, and I'm curious how you would feel about it, or if it's not a bad thing, just a reliance on there's a lot of copy importance in the words. I mean, as a man with an Ogilvy plaque in the back of the room, I am not shocked that words are important to you. That's a choice. I don't know how many people understand it, but I do love the print ads. Again, big Ogilvy fan. And that from there, sort of the process is what there's, I don't talk about too much about what the inside the experience is. It's not my place to say one way or the other. If you want to talk about it, you're more than welcome. But that's kind of what I heard, in that it's not a jack of all trades, master of none type of thing, but it's we cover all the bases because it's important to know, and then trying to install the system and process that gets you to an improved place in as many places as you can. Yeah. Is that a fair assessment?
That is probably pretty similar to the experience, but it was ironically, it wasn't intentionally that way. It was how clients have kind of shaped the program to be, because when people were coming in, they would, start asking some media buying questions, start reviewing the ad accounts, and all of a sudden, we get in, and you probably see this all the time. It's like the ad has no congruence to the landing page, or the landing page itself is converting at, it's a lead opt-in, it's converting at 10%. Your problem is not your advertising. Your problem is not your click cost. Your problem is that 10 people are converting out of 100 when it should be 30 or 40. And so we were just kind of getting all these consistent things coming through. And what we realized is just our clients' biggest problems was not necessarily media buying. And media buying is a media buying is a media buying. I mean, there's only so many ways you're going to create a campaign. In my opinion, no one really has an innovative process. There's variance in how people run ads, but no one has something new. But what is a huge gap that I'm seeing is that people are just not good marketers in general. And they wish, and I wish it too. I wish it was 2016 Facebook where you could put up pretty much anything and print money.
Yeah, picture of a brick millionaire. Absolutely.
I mean, man, I joined the game way late,
Yeah, like I hear you. I was spending $1 million a day in 2013, 2014.
100%.
It did not occur to me at the time to run my own business because I went from like touring musician and radio personality to like salary gigs, spending ungodly amounts of money. I was just like, oh, I don't need to fix this problem. This is great. And then 5 years of making millionaires every day, I was just like, maybe I should have done this back then. I know a lot of folks. I got in with a few people, but those days are behind us, sadly. And I think lack of a booming economy, smarter consumer base with less discretionary funds, a more saturated market, all sorts of things. It just doesn't work like it used to. Which is a bummer.
So anyway, the path to getting people better results and why copy is such a big emphasis in it is, really the only other thing you can get people to get really great at to get great results is the creative side. But the creative side is a very difficult thing to try to train people, not just, what is the marketing anatomy of the creative to produce good results, but then you have to train them editing, you have to train them softwares, they have to get this equipment, all this kind of stuff. And so copy is the easiest leverage thing that I can train someone on how to do and them to get better results without being an expert at creative.
Yeah. So I think to kind of summarize what I'm getting out of it, and which I think is great, very valuable, and a pivot from maybe how I handle things, which is, I think, great, because I will be the first to say, I don't think that there's any one way of having success. I think I'll lay it out first. I think the most successful, the easiest path to success is figure out what you do well and lean into it. And then that looks like different things. And it feels like for you, what that looks like is ultimately taking in as much insight and data for you to make as many decisions, to be a smarter marketer, because for you, you'd rather exude that control over your environment than relying on the machine to do it, because you're not necessarily sure if their motivations are aligned with yours. I'll put it that way, to say the least, especially with how they're showing their support with reps and other things. And so you're educating the advertiser to be the smartest marketer that we can. And as many places as those lessons apply, for the purpose of then leveraging that for trying to exude as much control where possible to get those efficiencies. I think that's a really heady way of trying to say it, but it's pretty accurate.
I think the simplest way that we've always done is that Facebook ad doesn't build a business. A marketer does. Google ads don't build a business, marketers do. Those are the people who actually help a company grow. And so until you can become a marketer that isn't handcuffed to one platform, but that can adapt and be agile and not just know how to write good ad copy, but examine the website and the landing pages and CRO, like that is a truly valuable asset. But someone who knows how to build a campaign the way Facebook wants it is not valuable, because let's pretend Facebook shuts down today. You are of zero value. And a great marketer is what helps and what companies actually need. And that's how we kind of explain it.
I like it. And I think I'll end it with this. My buddy Rabba, who's now CMO at Triple Whale, we used to have a podcast way back in the day. We used to say, like, there are people who are chefs and people who are bakers. Now, they both make good food. I think Rabba would align himself a bit more with, or we found that there's a lot of folks like Jessup, Fire Team, and a lot of other people who, great guy, who are really motivated with this, like, creative first, copy, marketing, build the most attractive things you can to get people. And I think I've always kind of been in the opinion of, how do we use the machine as effectively as possible and then test our way into leveraging it as much? And I think ultimately that's sort of the real difference between the way that we approach it. Again, who's to say? We're never going to get a shootout, right? We're never going to know, but we're both producing success. So that's great. but I would always prefer to, if I'm going to work in a machine, use that machine as effectively as possible, and then back end my way into that with, now let me get ads in. I'm not the world's best creative. I'm not the world's best copywriter, but I can absolutely use that machine probably to its fullest extent or as much as I can. And I think that's still using systems and processes, trying to solve it in a slightly different way. And I think where your emphasis is on audiences and insight to decentralize the delivery of well-qualified creatives, I would rather centralize all that data to get the most amount of stability, to have the best level of insight on whether or not my creative ideas are good, but ultimately to deliver as well the most stable and consistent flow of data into my machine, which would be what happens after the click. And I think that's also just a big piece that sadly and not enough marketers probably talk about is the business. And I'm glad to hear that you talked about that too. Like the best advertiser in the world, best copywriter in the world, not going to make a bad business model work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Greatest business model in the world, but terrible advertising, probably going to struggle, right? And I think that there's a great balance there. And it seems like what I like most about this is that we've both chosen to hyperbolically index in slightly different areas, but I think you have to in order to be good, because doing B- work across the board, you're never going to win.
Yeah.
But you can do A+ work in 2 or 3 places and maybe C- work in other spots, and you're going to be probably better off. If you ask me to make your ads, C- is the best grade I'm ever going to get.
Right.
Like I'll take that all day. No, but I like that a lot, man. I do appreciate it. I know we've been busy trying to get in touch with each other, but I think it's just been really interesting because I think the people that see this, that know the way that I think, are going to have a very big opinion. And the people that know how you think, maybe they've gotten an opportunity to hear how I look at stuff, because I do think that we look at it very differently. But again, I think they're both still driving success. And I think my primary difference is I would never test an audience. I'm never using audiences. I'm going dynamic creative pretty much from day one. Once I have an idea on what concepts to work with. And I am using my best thinking, or I will outsource that creative development. But I'm then trying to align myself as closely as possible to the workings of the machine so that it can do all of the work for me. And then my only lever is then creative. And I never have to worry about audiences or ad sets or campaigns dying ever again. But I think that's just 6 one way, half a dozen the other is what it seems like.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. You know, I think it's important, you know, Jordan, what's his name, last name? Menard, Jordan Menard, and I have a lot of disagreements in how to run advertising, but he's a very successful advertiser. You know, I've had clients that then went on to work with him and had a great experience and vice versa. And so I think, you know, that side is important because, you know, if L'Oreal came to us to run their ads, I would not be a great agency for them because they're very much a brand play. Now they would, from what I'm hearing, it almost would be a perfect client for you. Because at that point, your goal is efficiency at all costs. And we're assuming that every creative we're testing is pretty much proven if it's coming from them. And so it's like, it's important that there are different types of advertisers. You know, my only real concern was the concept of calling out other marketers on the concepts and strategies they use without actually knowing what it is. It makes no sense that marketers are shitting on other marketers for marketing.
I think I saw you say that, and I think that has also put into some perspective the way that I try to communicate with folks, and I appreciate that feedback. Jordan has said some stuff too. I think that we're all marketers trying to market ourselves and products, and that's why I was really wanting to touch base, because I think at the end of the day, 30-second videos with like maybe a couple hundred characters, dramatically different than this opportunity to, as close as we can in this crazy world, be a little face to face and get to understand where people are coming from. Because I think there's maybe a bit too much division and not enough understanding of what's behind the social media content that ultimately is designed to attract attention and designed to create engagement of some sort. And I'm glad you brought up Jordan. He's a good guy, and I think he's definitely been successful with folks where other people haven't, and I think that's a great thing. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I have tried to exhibit more restraint of pen and tongue from moments like that, and I think the opportunity to have these types of conversations is something that I'm trying to lean way more into, because I think both of us are motivated by seeing other people be successful. And if somebody can listen to this and pick a direction on how we've communicated about it, what feels like the best way of leaning into what works for them, I think that's ultimately the best win for everybody who, for one reason or another, hasn't had the life experience that put them where we are at this point. And, you know, if they're leaning out to us, it's probably because they're doing a lot of other things right. And we're the next, you know, stop on their path to success. And so for that, I just want to say thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you go. I know we're talking way over, and I appreciate every last bit of it. And I'm sure I'm going to see you out there in the real world now that the things are opening up and people are speaking and doing all sorts of stuff. And yeah, man, I've been enjoying your content. I will say this. My favorite piece of content you made lately was the Bro Marketing Agency.
Yeah.
That one hit home. I love the hell out of that because we all know that guy.
Yeah.
That one legitimately made me laugh like 4 times.
Oh, thank you.
I watched it like
yeah.
6. The first 4 got me to laugh. The last 2 I didn't get the same chuckle, but it was damn good.
Well, thank you, man. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to make ads. That ad in particular was really fun.
Yeah, I thought that was I am trying to take a lesson of being as tactile while also as funny as you were with taking shots with that. And there's some lessons to be learned there, man. So with that being said, I appreciate it, man. I'll let you go. I know you're a busy guy, and I think I've said that 3 times and then just kept talking. So this time I mean it. I'll talk to you later, dude. Thank you so much.
All right, buddy. Peace.
All right, bye.